Hey everyone, and welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're going to dig into something you use literally every single day, but probably don't think twice about: the words we choose when we talk about the environment. What if the very language we speak is, making it harder to solve our planet's biggest challenges? Let's find out.
So this is the big question right here. Is our language failing the planet? I know, it sounds pretty dramatic, but stick with me. We're going to see how the words we use, and maybe more importantly, the words we don't have, are quietly shaping our environmental reality.
So here's the paradox. Ever since the 1960s, really kicked off by Rachel Carson's incredible book Silent Spring, we've been talking about the environment more than ever. It's on the news, it's in our politics, it's everywhere. But here's the thing. While the volume of the conversation has gone way up, has our language actually kept pace?
And that gets us to the absolute heart of the matter. The problem is this: our world is changing at a dizzying speed, but our language, the very tool we use to make sense of it all, is lagging way behind. There's this fundamental mismatch between what's happening and the words we have to talk about it.
Okay, so let's get specific. In this first part, we're going to break down exactly how our words can fall short, and sometimes how they can actually hide the very problems we're trying to solve.
So it really boils down to three key failures in the way we talk. First, we use words that are just too vague. Second, we rely on words that oversimplify really complex stuff. And third, and this is a big one, we use words that are just plain misleading. Let's take them one by one. All right, let's kick it off with vagueness. Take a word like pollution. Seems simple enough, right? But as one source points out, it's actually really hard to get people to agree on what it even is. Or what about the word safe? When someone says a chemical level is safe, what does that actually mean? Safe for whom? For how long? And who decides that a certain insect is a pest? You see, these words give us this illusion of clarity, but they're incredibly fuzzy. And a lot of this fuzziness comes from a linguistic issue with a bit of a mouthful of a name: semantic underdifferentiation. It sounds complicated, but the idea is simple. It's when we use one single word to describe a whole bunch of different, sometimes even opposite things.
For example, let's look at the word growth. When we hear that, we probably think of something positive, something natural, like a tree growing. But we use that exact same word for economic growth, for population growth, or even for the growth of a toxic algae bloom. Things that can be completely artificial and, honestly, pretty dangerous. That one little word hides all these huge differences.
You know, the thinker Herbert Grohl really nailed it when he said this. When speaking of economic growth, one evokes the impression, voluntarily or involuntarily, of a natural process. He's pointing out that by borrowing a word from nature, we make economic growth sound organic, inevitable, and harmless, like a flower blooming, instead of the complex, man-made system with very real consequences that it actually is. And this kind of leads us to an even more serious problem: language that is actively designed to hide danger. Yeah, we're talking about euphemisms, those softer, gentler words we use to cover up a harsh reality.
And you won't find a clearer example of this than in the official language for handling radioactive waste. Get this: a container for shipping this stuff is called a pig. It makes you think of a harmless farm animal. A bigger container for transport? That's a coffin, which, makes you think the contents are already dead and not a threat. And the place where they put it all? A burial ground, which sounds like a place of peace and final rest. Every single one of these terms is a linguistic sleight of hand, designed to make something incredibly dangerous sound, well, boring and safe. It's a vocabulary built to turn down our internal alarm bells.
Now, at this point, you might be thinking, well, okay, but that's just how language works. But here's the thing: it's not. And this is where it gets really, really interesting. Let's take a look at how some other languages handle these ideas, because it proves our way isn't the only way. So in the Iwo language, which is spoken in the Solomon Islands, they have this feature called noun classifiers. Just think of them as mandatory little prefixes that have to go on the front of a noun to sort it into a category. And one of their categories is reserved specifically for things that are dangerous, unclean, or just generally bad. So let's see how this works. The prefix is si. So a lie is singa, waste is sikonyao. The word for waste literally has danger built right into it. Now just imagine for a second if English worked that way. It would be a lot harder for companies to sell you cigarettes, right? The language itself would be a warning label. And it doesn't even stop there. Iwo also has another prefix, ka. This one's for things that seem stable and inert,
but have the potential for sudden, dramatic, and dangerous change. Imagine if we had to call a nuclear power station a ka nuclear power station, or a landfill a ka landfill. The word itself would constantly remind you of the hidden risk every single time you said it.
Okay, one more example, this time from Tok Pisin in Papua New Guinea. They have a clear grammatical way to distinguish between something that's just damaged but fixable, they call that bagarap, and something that is ruined forever, beyond repair, bagarap pinis. Meanwhile, in English, we just have one ambiguous word like disposal. Does that mean getting rid of something for a little while, or is it gone for good, forever? Our language doesn't tell us. And that ambiguity really, really matters. So this brings us to the big so what. Why does any of this matter? It's because language isn't just a collection of labels we slap onto things. It's the lens. It's the lens through which we see the world, the way we make sense of it. It shapes what we notice, what we ignore, and ultimately what we do.
So when you put it all together, the conclusion is pretty clear. The words we use literally create our perception of reality. When our words are vague or misleading, they can hide real danger and make it impossible to take clear action. But as we've seen, other languages prove that it is totally possible to build environmental awareness right into the grammar. Our words are tools, and we have a choice. Are we going to use them to create clarity or to create confusion? And that leaves us with one final thought to take with you. If you could invent one new word, just one, that doesn't exist yet, to help us all see, think about, and care for our planet more clearly, what would that word be?